What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Saturday, January 3rd, 2026, and I have some breaking news to share with you guys. Right now it is 16:29 Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some major breaking news coming in from Venezuela and also from Iran. So in case you guys didn't see the news today, you probably woke up to hearing about Maduro, the leader of Venezuela, getting captured by U.S. special operations and a large number of airstrikes on the capital of Venezuela. And we were covering it live all night last night. A lot of things happened. There's still a lot of details that are going to be coming out, but I want to just update you guys with some of the latest information that I have and some of the concerning things that I'm seeing right now. So Rubio, the Secretary of State and National Security Advisor, said earlier today that Maduro is not the president of Venezuela and his regime is illegitimate. So he restated what he said multiple times. The U.S. State Department released a statement saying that there's a new era in Venezuela. And the State Department also urged U.S. citizens in Venezuela to stay in their homes. So that's pretty interesting. So State Department telling U.S. citizens to shelter in place. And this is what gets very concerning. So the Venezuelan defense minister and the Venezuelan interior minister actually survived the attacks last night. And they came out and they made statements this morning, and some of those statements were concerning. So let me just read to you what they said. So the defense minister, who we initially thought was killed in the airstrikes, some people were reporting that he was killed. He actually survived. There were attacks on his compound and also on the interior minister's compound. But the defense minister came out saying that we are deploying our forces throughout the country, okay? And he was basically showing defiance to the Trump administration. He also was saying that we're not going to quit. We're deploying our forces. So, he's basically taking over the country now. The defense minister of Venezuela is going to be the new leader of the country, which could be a problem because defense ministers are typically military people, and they can be more hardline than someone like Maduro, okay? And the Venezuelan interior minister appeared on TV surrounded by Venezuelan police forces saying, "This is an attack against Venezuela. We are deployed, and from here we call for calm among our people and ask them to trust in the leadership. Let no one despair and make things easier for the invading enemy." Okay, so no signs of surrender by the regime officials. Okay, so they captured Maduro, but the regime is still there in Venezuela, and they're now taking over the government. So that would be like if we went into Russia and captured Putin and we bragged about it to the whole world. Yeah, we got Putin, we got Putin. But then Medvedev takes over, or Nikolai Patrushev takes over, or the Russian defense minister takes over, or one of the Russian generals. It doesn't matter that you got Putin. You still have all of Putin's people that are still there, that are loyal to him, that believe in the same things as him. So yeah, you got Putin, but his regime has survived. So what does that matter really that you got him? It's like playing whack-a-mole. So the problem here is, what if the defense minister takes over the country and he becomes more hardline than Maduro was? Because remember, the defense minister just witnessed an attack on his country and his regime. And typically, after something like that, you have very hardline dictators emerge, even more crazy than Maduro. Maduro wasn't really like a hardline dictator, but think about Putin or Hitler. Okay, Hitler rose from the ashes of World War I when Germany had an economic collapse and they were humiliated. And Putin, same thing. He rose from the ashes of the collapse of the USSR and the 90s economic crisis in Russia, when Russia was humiliated around the world and they were seen as the losers of the Cold War. Okay, so we could potentially see Venezuelan Putin emerge after this if the Trump administration is not careful in monitoring the situation and making sure everything is stabilized properly. Okay, if they just grab Maduro and brag about it to the world and say, okay, we're done, we got Maduro, who cares? That's a big mistake, okay, because now you're going to have this power vacuum and the regime is just going to continue on and they're going to be more pissed off. But we'll have to wait and see what Trump decides to do. I'm pretty sure Trump wants to stabilize the country based on everything we've heard, because he wants the black gold. Okay, Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the world. Okay, much more than anywhere else. The largest proven oil reserves. Let that sink in. Okay, that should immediately click in your head why this is all going down. Okay, the U.S. needs energy security. We don't have the capability of producing our own oil to the extent that we don't need to import from anybody. We still are reliant on the Middle East and other countries to fulfill our oil needs, which is a major problem for strategic security. Okay, so Trump is probably looking long term, and he wants to set up the U.S. so that we have energy independence, energy security, and we're not reliant on hardline regimes for oil. Okay, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. And here's a picture of Maduro when he was being escorted by U.S. Special Operations. He was taken to the aircraft carrier in the Caribbean, and he's going to be facing charges here in the U.S. And the head of the Venezuelan Ministry of Defense and the chairman of the parliament in Venezuela are reported to be safe and are still in Venezuelan territory. Okay, so the government is still alive. The Venezuelan military is now reportedly trying to regain control of government buildings there. Okay. And the Russian Foreign Ministry made some statements. They said they're extremely concerned by reports that Venezuela's Maduro and his wife were forcibly removed from the country. The Russian Foreign Ministry said such actions, if they actually took place, constitute an unacceptable violation of the sovereignty of an independent state. So Russia is not going to like this at all. They don't like it. And I think this is going to jeopardize the Ukraine peace talks, because Russia is not going to want to talk with the U.S. anymore now after this, because this is exactly what Putin has said he doesn't like about the U.S., is the U.S. getting involved in other countries' internal affairs. That's Putin's biggest pet peeve and China's biggest pet peeve. Not that their pet peeves really matter much to me, but I'm just telling you the reality, okay? Putin's not going to like this, and he's going to basically say, you know what, we can't trust the U.S. anymore. They're not credible as neutral negotiators, so we're going to just abandon the peace talks. I think that's what we're going to see. So I don't see any Ukraine peace deal coming, but hopefully I'm wrong. Maybe something will be worked out, but I doubt it. And we have some interesting news coming in about the date of this whole situation. So today is January 3rd. And interestingly, 6 years ago to the day, January 3rd, 2020, is when Trump assassinated the general in Iran, Qasem Soleimani. Okay, so I don't know if that's just a coincidence or if there's something more to the story, but pretty interesting that 6 years exactly to the day from when Soleimani was killed, we capture Maduro. And U.S. Senator Mike Lee said that he was told by Rubio that Maduro was arrested by U.S. personnel to face criminal charges in the U.S., and that the military action seen was to protect those carrying out the arrest. He added that no further U.S. action in Venezuela is expected. So this is the problem. The problem is we come in, we take Maduro, but his regime is still alive, okay? And his regime is going to be even more pissed off now that we did this. So are we going to now go back in a week, 2-3 weeks to get rid of the rest of the regime, or are we just going to let them stay there? What's going to happen now? So this could potentially cause problems. There's going to be repercussions for this. So we'll have to wait and see, but be on high alert, guys. I want to remind you there's a lot of sleeper cells in this country. Iranian sleeper cells, Russian sleeper cells, Chinese, Cubans, Venezuelans, cartels. They're all in this country, and they have sleeper cells that they can activate to attack our critical infrastructure and different things, okay? So just be on high alert and make sure you're continuing your preparations, okay? And Venezuela called an extraordinary session of the UN Security Council in connection with the aggression of the U.S., the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Venezuela said. And U.S. Senator Tim Kaine said he will force a vote next week to block further military action against Venezuela without congressional approval in the wake of Trump's operation to capture Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Okay, so this is pretty interesting. We'll see if that actually passes. And the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov is condemning the U.S. now, calling it an unacceptable encroachment on the sovereignty of an independent state. All right, so Russia and China are definitely going to make some moves in response to this. Maybe China's going to say, okay, you guys can go into Venezuela. Well, we're going to go into Taiwan. Or Russia is going to say, well, you guys can go into Venezuela. Well, we're going to go into Lithuania or Estonia, So this is not the end, guys. This is just the beginning. And we heard some information earlier today from CBS News that Trump gave the Pentagon the green light to conduct the land strikes in Venezuela and also capturing Maduro days before the actual operation occurred. Okay, apparently officials discussed the mission on Christmas Day, but airstrikes in Nigeria against ISIS targets took precedence, according to 2 U.S. officials that spoke to CBS News. So they were actually going to do this on Christmas Day, but because of the Nigeria situation, they pushed it out, supposedly. And I wanted to update you guys on the situation in Iran. We have to monitor that really closely. I know the Venezuela situation seems to be more serious, but actually the situation in Iran has a potential of really skyrocketing. And so we heard yesterday that Iran ordered all of their banks to prepare for a system-wide collapse. A secret letter from Iran's central bank just leaked. Every major bank has been told to enter full emergency mode immediately. The letter warns of attacks, blackouts, and loss of control scenarios. Banks are being ordered to secure their data, activate backup systems, and keep money moving, even if everything collapses. This isn't a drill. The directive is classified, urgent, and lays out exactly how to keep the financial system alive if the government falls apart. This isn't about regular protests. They're prepping for a meltdown where cities go dark, systems crash, and people panic. Okay, so Iran is telling its banks to prepare for a full-scale collapse, and today the riots, the protests, whatever you want to call it, coup d'etat in Iran is continuing. And remember, Trump told the world that if Iran continues to attack the protesters or kills them, then the U.S. is going to get involved. And I think we're going to see that because now that we grabbed Maduro and this operation is over, I think we're going to see the U.S. get involved in Iran to protect these rioters, which I believe are sponsored by Western intelligence, especially CIA and Mossad. But we're hearing reports coming out of Iran today that Iranian security forces have opened fire on protesters in the city of Isfahan. We're also hearing that Iran's IRGC special forces are clashing now with armed protesters who have acquired AK-47s, and apparently several of these armed protesters were shot already. And multiple reports are indicating that armed groups are forming in several regions of Iran, suggesting that unrest may be escalating from riots towards an armed conflict. So we're on the verge of a full-scale coup d'etat in Iran. Iran warned of a decisive response to any U.S. involvement. Iran sent a letter to UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres condemning U.S. President Donald Trump's remarks on ongoing protests in Iran. Tehran rejected the comments as reckless and interventionist, reaffirming its right to defend its sovereignty, territorial integrity, and national security. Iran stated it would respond decisively and proportionately to any foreign interference, okay? And the Speaker of the Iranian Parliament, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, has stated that all American bases and forces across the Middle East will be legitimate targets in response to any intervention by the United States in the ongoing civil unrest. Okay, so if we help the protesters, Iran is going to attack our bases. And Iran International reports that at least 50 people, most of them teenagers, were arrested by security forces in the city of Yasuj, Iran. So it sounds like they're maybe capturing people to mobilize them. And there were also reports coming out of Hamadan, Iran, that protesters were burning buildings. And an Iranian advisor to the supreme leader of Iran said Trump must understand that American intervention in the protests will lead to destabilization of the entire region and harm American interests, so basically threatening the U.S. And there were reports on social media of clashes between armed Iranian Kurdish protesters and IRGC units in Sarabli, Ilan province in western Iran. So the Kurds actually live in parts of western Iran, so now they're capitalizing on it, and they're helping these protesters. And we're hearing that some protesters took down the Iranian flag in Bushehr, Iran last night. And U.S. Congressman Thomas Massie criticized Trump's threat to strike Iran, saying any such move would require congressional authorization. He said, "We have problems at home and shouldn't be wasting military resources on another country's internal affairs," the Republican House member from Kentucky posted on X on Friday. "Military strikes on Iran require congressional authorization. This threat isn't about freedom of speech in Iran, it's about the dollar, oil, and Israel," he added. Wow. And we have some very concerning news coming out of China. So China's Army, the PLA, simulated battles near Mexico and Cuba. China's military simulated battle scenarios near Mexico, Cuba, and Taiwan during a PLA wargaming exercise. And they had a picture on closed-circuit television that was released on December 24th of this red team, blue team exercise, a simulated war in Mexico and Cuba, the Caribbean area, Taiwan. Maps visible in the footage showed conflict zones spanning the Gulf of America, the Caribbean Sea, and the Sea of Okhotsk, which is near Russia, and Taiwan. One screen showed during the broadcast depicted red and blue opposing units commonly used in PLA exercises, with red typically representing Chinese forces and blue the adversary. So this is very concerning, guys. China is preparing for war in our backyard, in the Caribbean, the Gulf of Mexico or Gulf of America, the Sea of Okhotsk, which is near Japan and Russia, and Taiwan. Very, very concerning. This is like a Red Dawn type exercise that they're preparing for a Red Dawn scenario. And the Israeli military raised its level of alert due to ongoing anti-government protests in Iran, with senior defense and intelligence officials meeting both Thursday and Friday to discuss various scenarios, including a resumption of the 12-day war with Iran. The Israeli government under Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu directed ministers and other officials to not speak publicly about the situation in Iran. So, very interesting. Israel is on high alert. And the Israeli Broadcasting Authority reported that the Israeli cabinet will meet next Thursday to discuss a new Israeli military operation in Lebanon. And the Foreign Intelligence Service of Ukraine is now warning that Russia is preparing a large-scale provocation that will cause significant human casualties and will be blamed on Ukraine. So they're basically saying Russia is going to conduct a false flag, and they're going to do it during Orthodox Christmas or around Orthodox Christmas. So that's according to the Orthodox Christian calendar. They celebrate Christmas on a different day. Okay, so very, very concerning. And Russia and Belarus are now in a development process that will allow the use of tactical nuclear warheads for old missile systems that Belarus has, like the Polonez system. Russian experts are involved in creating compatible warheads, potentially compact tactical ones with a yield similar to those of Iskander missiles, up to 50 kilotons. So if you guys are not aware, Belarus has a lot of these old missile systems from the Cold War. They're called the Polonez missiles. They're just like similar to a Scud. And Russia is trying to build new warheads for them, essentially, which is very concerning. Nuclear warheads. And Russia already deployed the Oreshnik nuclear missile system in Belarus. Okay, so we literally have Russian nukes in Europe now. Okay, just a few hundred miles away from places like Berlin, Paris. Very, very serious, guys. And China has begun converting civilian cargo ships into floating platforms for launching combat drones. Beijing is steadily preparing for a possible conflict over Taiwan. Photos have surfaced online showing the container ship Zhongda 79 equipped with a modular electromagnetic catapult. The system is designed to launch next-generation heavy drones like the Type X CCA. The vessel has been effectively turned into an improvised drone carrier. Okay, so that's very concerning. And the U.S. Department of Justice announced Friday that the FBI foiled an ISIS-inspired terror attack on New Year's Eve in North Carolina. Christian Sturdivant, 18 years old, of Mint Hill, was arrested earlier this week and charged with attempting to provide material support to a foreign terror organization after communicating online to an undercover federal agent posing as a member of ISIS about his plans to attack people inside a grocery store and fast food restaurant in his hometown using hammers and a knife on New Year's Eve. So this is why I tell people you have to be aware of your surroundings and you have to carry self-defense tools, okay? Earlier this month, on December 18th, the FBI field office in Charlotte received information that an individual later identified as Sturdivant was making multiple social media posts in support of ISIS, with him having first appeared on the FBI's radar in January 2022. So that's what I'm talking about with these sleeper cells, okay? And finally, the leader of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, threatened Ukraine, saying, "I just want to warn Ukraine that this war will end in disaster. Russia has something to strike decision-making centers with, such that not a stone will be left standing. You have to stop." So he's talking about basically nuking Kiev. But that's the latest breaking news that I have. I might be back later on with more breaking news. And until the next time, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps. Prepare, practice, and persevere. And this update was sponsored by EMP Shield. Guys, EMP Shield has created a special discount just for you, the listeners of the NYPrepper channel. If you go to empshield.com and use the promo code NYPrepper, you can get 15% off your entire order. And why do you need an EMP Shield? Well, this is a special device to protect your vehicle, your RV, your solar generators, your radios from an electromagnetic pulse, which could be caused by a solar flare or potentially a rogue country like North Korea detonating an electromagnetic pulse weapon over the United States that's mounted onto a satellite. So protect your vehicles, protect your RV, protect your radios, protect your generators with an EMP Shield. Use my promo code NYPrepper to get 15% off. Installation is super simple. This is a veteran-owned business, 100% American-made, and the EMP Shields have been tested by the military, okay? And free shipping is included to the entire continental United States. And the link and the promo code are in the description below this video.